Hello, I'm Brian Nestor from How to Automotive. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to rebuild a dual piston caliper, so come with me. My vehicle, the axle seal leaked on the differential, allowing the gear oil to come down the tube and get onto the caliper, causing this seal to swell, and it was poking out. It was, basically popped out of the bore here. So that most likely means that there's gear oil that's gotten behind here, that's gotten into the seal, that could potentially cause the piston and caliper to leak. So we're going to swap all these parts out. So you're just going to need a couple things. You're going to need some brake clean, some brake fluid, a little bit of caliper lube, and you're going to need a caliper rebuild kit like this one here. You may be wondering, why would you want to rebuild it and not just replace it? Well, this is a big brake kit from Terraflex, and each caliper is a couple $100. When it's just a couple seals really internally that make these things work, it's very simple how they work. So it's, a seal kit is less than 20 bucks, but between $200 and $300 for a big caliper like this dual piston caliper versus 20 bucks and some materials here to rebuild it. You can save yourself a lot of money by doing this yourself. It's super easy. It's only a couple of moving parts in here. So we're going to rebuild this caliper, and I'm going to walk you step by step through the process of doing that. So depending on what type of caliper you're using, you're going to have to order your rebuild kit to your specific caliper, year, make, and model. So one of the other things you're going to need tool-wise is a good wire brush, and then you're going to need a little bit of compressed air and maybe some pick tools to pick out the O-rings, and that's pretty much it. You're not going to need much more. Also, one other thing you would need is a couple rags and stuff to help clean everything up. So you can see here the gear oil got onto the pads. It soaked the pad. So I'm going to swap all this out. I'm going to walk you step by step. So the first thing we're going to do is disassemble it. So you're going to unbolt it from your vehicle. We're going to disassemble all the slides like this, take all this off, and we're gonna swap all that out, clean all the ports out, and then we're gonna disassemble the caliper. We're gonna need to put compressed air in here, and what that's gonna do is it's gonna push the pistons out. So to do that, to prevent these from just shooting out when you put compressed air in it, you want to put some rags or something like that in between the pistons like this. And now you can apply your air, and that'll push the two pistons out. If you're lucky, they'll push them out together. If not, one piston will come out, and then you'll have to work the second piston out because you won't be able to have air pressure to push the second one out. We'll see what happens here. So I don't actually have an air compressor here at the house, but I have an electric pump here, and I'm going to attempt to see if this will work and help me out here. This is a brand new tool by Milwaukee. I'm just going to run it. As you heard it there, it pushed the piston out. Of course, it did the one with the, yeah, it definitely got gear oil on it. I can feel it on there. So when you get your pistons out, you want to look for pitting. If there's any pitting on the piston itself right here, don't bother rebuilding it. Just go ahead. Actually, if you're lucky, you can find new pistons, but they may be more difficult to find. It would be best to just go ahead and swap out the caliper. But if the pistons look like this one here, where they're in perfect shape, as you can see, then you're ready to rebuild. So since that one didn't come all the way out, we're going to have to work this one out. So this is the O-rings we're going to be changing out right here. As you can see in here, nothing to it. So a caliper is just a bore, a piston, an O-ring, and a seal. Pretty much it. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to swap all this out. So this piston came out pretty easy, but it's almost impossible to get the second piston out. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to slide it back in just a little bit where it's making contact, but it's still easy enough for me to pull it out like this. Put this block of wood back in here. Now I'm going to use the compressed air, and hopefully that'll push this piston out. But I'm also going to put this rag here so it doesn't come flying out. So as you can see, it popped that one out. Now both pistons should come out like that. Now we're ready to rebuild it. So now with the pistons out, we can go ahead and pick the O-ring out. It's just a flat O-ring. So it's not a round O-ring, it's flat, and that's a little bit different than your standard standard O-rings here. So once you get them picked out, now we can go ahead and just wash and clean this. A good wire brush like this gives it a good scrub. Some brake clean here. You're going to spray this, clean it all up, clean out the insides of the boards really well, and look for any abnormal pitting in here or anything that would make you want to replace the caliper. Just clean it up. Also the bracket here, we're going to disassemble the bracket here. So you're just going to pull the slide pins out like this, pull those out. Now we're going to clean that up. We're going to wire brush all the guides here, the slide portions here, and get it all cleaned up and ready to go back together. So just take your time, scrub the brackets as best you can. If there's any rust issues, deal with that by filing anything that may need to be filed. And then the bores, if you need to clean the bores out on the guides, you use a bore brush to clean out the grease and stuff on the
So now
guides.
that we got the caliper cleaned up, I'm not so worried about the outside. We're just going to get brake dust back on it when we hit the trails and drive it. I'm more concerned with the inside. So now we're ready to reassemble it. Here we got our new rebuild kit. If you're running the Terraflex brake kit on there, here's the part number for it. This is the big brake kit for the JK Jeep. This is the Terraflex caliper here. So anyways, if you're running a different brand, your part numbers are going to vary. So on this particular caliper, there's two grooves, an inner groove and an outer groove. The outer groove is for the dust boot. The inner groove is for your new O-ring here. It goes inside. So now we're going to assemble this. You want to keep your hands as clean as you possibly can. If you have to, swap out your gloves as many times as you need to. So what I'm going to do is you're going to put these in inside the grooves here. And you don't want them twisted or anything like that. You want them to lay flat in there. We're going to lubricate them with just a little bit of brake fluid. So I'm just going to pour some in the cap here so I can dip my fingers in it and just lubricate the seal. And this should be plenty of lubrication to get the seal to go in and the piston to go in. Let's see if I can turn this around here. So we're just gonna put the O-ring inside and just make sure it's not twisted. Pretty simple. So you can see the O-rings in. Keep this lubricated. Do the same thing for the opposite one here. Lubrication, install inner groove. So when you're taking yours apart, you want to pay attention to that stuff like that. You know, which way did the seal sit? Okay, so I got it installed. So that, there you go. Now it's installed. Now we're going to install our first piston here. Make sure it's all cleaned off. So it looks like the easiest way to do this is to put the seal in first, because there's a groove that it has to sit in. And I'm going to put just a little bit of a brake fluid on the piston to help slide it through. Let's see if I can do this. You might even have to flare it out like this. Get it started. Maybe this is going to be tough. We're going to have to experiment with this. So I'm going to try to put it on there where it's sticking out over the edge a little bit like this. Let's see if I can get that started first. So the way I had to do it is have the dust boot halfway off the piston and halfway on.
and the dust boot had a little bit of lip that goes inwards, built onto it. So I stuck that in the groove, and then I pushed the piston in. Now I'm just using my fingers around the dust shield or dust boot here and pushing everything in. Once I did that, now you can push the piston in with your fingers to just lightly pull it in until you feel it engage with the O-ring. Now with the O-ring engaged, now I'm going to use a hammer here, put it down inside the piston here, and lightly tap the top, and this will drive the piston down into the bore until it fully seats. You just want to make sure the piston is going in straight and not cockeyed. Now there's a groove on the end of the piston where the outer portion of the boot rides. Make sure it's all inside the groove there, and you should be good to go.
Lubrication. Set the seal on. Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I can. There we go. See how it's all flared out now? Now I should be able to stretch it down to where it's hanging off the edge. Just a little bit. Now you can see it's hanging off the edge. Now I should be able to, with my little screwdriver here, a pick tool, and work the seal into it. So I'm going through the back side here, pushing the bottom lip in. Don't want to poke it, you just want to push it in. Now it's fully seated. I'll go ahead and push the piston in. You can feel the piston start on the O-ring when it gets tight. Now you can't pull it back off. Now I'm going to use my hammer trick here. Fully seated, and you can see it popped into the grooves here. So now the main portion of the caliper is rebuilt. Now it came with a new bleeder screw, so I'm going to go ahead and install that. Rebuilt now. Now we're going to focus on the bracket here. So after cleaning it out, I use brake clean, a little bit of, you can use wire brush to go in there and clean that out. Now we're going to assemble the slide pins and the dust boot. You're going to need a little bit of grease to lube everything up here. This is called Seal Glide. It's specially formulated for brakes, so at the high temperatures it doesn't break down. If you use the wrong type of grease, it'll liquefy and get all over your part. So the way I do it is I just put some on the pins here, and then work the pins in. Make sure everything turns nice and free like that. You add a little bit more since we disassembled everything. I can feel a little bit of a metal to metal drag, so I'm going to add just a little bit more, not a whole lot more. And that's pretty much it. Now you can just put your boot on. Some have, you know, depending on the caliper, this is a universal, it doesn't matter what side it goes on. So you're just going to put it on there. I like to just put them on like this and press them. And now it's on there. Just like that. Duplicate the other side. If you put too much grease in there, it'll create like a hydraulic effect, and when you push it in, it'll push back out. You don't want that. You don't want a hydraulic effect on it because that could cause it to drag. But you do want enough grease on here that does its job. So I think we got it good. Put it on. Perfect. Now you can go ahead and assemble your brake pads. Put this back on the spindles. Put this on, and then you're going to bleed out your caliper. So that's how you rebuild a dual piston caliper. I'm Brian from How to Automotive. I'd like to thank you guys for watching and encourage you to subscribe. Thank you for watching.